Welcome to episode 5 of the Cozy Mystery Quartet, where we're investigating subplots. I'm Wendy Kendall, and I'm joined by Linda Hope Lee, Michael Erdahl, and Susan McCormick. A person's life doesn't move forward in a straight line, uninterrupted. There are complications and detours. There are other people who interrupt and complicate and affect other lives around them. Subplots bring that kind of realism to the main plot. Readers expect that kind of variety, like life. Subplots support the primary plot. They add intrigue and interest, all without overtaking the main story. An author can use a subplot in parallel to show information about characters, show a contrast, introduce new characters, comic relief, or romance. In Cat Out of the Bag, my character, Amber, is the college student managing Catherine's Purse Museum gift shop. She and her boyfriend, Michael, discover something intriguing in a vintage purse. This starts them on a mystery trail of their own, a parallel mystery. The approach they use investigating is a contrast to the main plot sleuthing. Their subplot certainly increases tension. 2 mysteries for the price of 1. Different characters are introduced, and they also bring a beautiful love story. Here's an excerpt. Michael pulled Amber aside in the little courtyard that was used for lunches in good weather. There are scattered picnic tables, stairs, and grass to sit on. "I'm in a moonlit mood, baby." His strong arms surrounded her, and she reached up for his broad shoulders. As their lips met, Amber couldn't imagine anywhere else she'd want to be. Michael, how about subplots in your mystery?
Thanks, Wendy. I'm nearing the end of Cat Out of the Bag, and I must say that I am thoroughly entertained by your historical mystery subplot. As your story moves between it and the main mystery, I find myself initially disappointed to be pulled away from the current storyline, but I'm quickly lost in diving back into the story before me. I really enjoy writing subplots and love what they can bring to the story. The main plot of a cozy mystery is fairly rigid. The novel needs to have the murder early in the novel and solved at the end. The entire novel should follow the standard 3-act structure of writing, which we might get into in a different podcast. Subplots don't have a determinative length, which makes them much more adaptable. I have multiple subplots in my novels, and will share a few to highlight different examples. My main character, Crystal, quits her office job in Chapter 1, but doesn't have any savings and doesn't know what to do with her life. She finds her new job as a wilderness guide 1 chapter later. The entire subplot is only pages long, but it leads straight to the next subplot: how to bluff being a wilderness guide when she doesn't have any qualifications. Subplots don't have to be short. The main subplot in my book is the romance between Crystal and Connor. Since we don't write in the romance genre, the relationship doesn't need to be set by the end of the book. This story arc will continue over the course of the entire series of books, but will hit natural stopping points at the end of each book to give the reader a sense of completeness. Subplots are also useful tools to help develop secondary characters. In my second book, Spring Upon a Crime, Crystal's best friend Olivia helps by investigating a group of environmental protesters. Her actions give me a chance to follow the #1 rule of writing: show, don't tell. Her blending in seamlessly with an encampment of protesting hippies is much more engaging than stating Olivia was like a hippie. Subplots are the topping on your sundae. They give pizzazz to a formulaic murder mystery and give the writer a chance to surprise the reader. Linda, how do you employ subplots in your writing?
Thank you, Michael. Each book in my Nina Foster mystery series has several subplots. One such story thread concerns Nina and Stephen's relationship. They meet for the first time in Book 1. Stephen is a newcomer, having relocated from New York to become owner of Richmond's weekly newspaper. His and Nina's involvement in solving the crime throws them together, and an attraction develops. By the end of the book, Stephen is ready to move ahead with the relationship, but Nina is not. Several associations that ended badly, plus being abandoned by her father at an early age, have left her wary and distrustful. Each succeeding book in the series includes this subplot question: will Nina and Stephen's relationship become permanent or not? To keep the dilemma from becoming stale, in each story I introduce a new complication or obstacle to the subplot's resolution. Even so, I know I can't leave this problem unresolved. Currently, I'm writing book 4. Will the two settle their relationship question in this story? I honestly don't know. I'll have to wait and see what they decide. Other subplots involve secondary characters and are resolved by the end of the story. Often these story threads include humor and help to create well-rounded characters. Also, whenever possible, I create subplots that relate in some way to the main plot. This makes for a more tightly woven story. Here are a few examples. In Murder Between the Pages, a subplot concerns Nina and her library staff planning the annual book sale. A secondary character, publicist Sandra Wagner, who is also a suspect, gives them a sales pitch for her services. Will Nina and her staff take a chance on someone who might be a killer? A subplot in Secrets to Die For involves the residents of the retirement home, Marley Manor, who assist Nina in establishing their library. Will their meddling in her investigation help or hinder the outcome? Another subplot in this story centers around Nina's grandmother, Jessica, also a Marley resident, and newcomer Joe McGarity. Nina worries about their budding relationship because Joe is on her suspect list. Yes, subplots are an important element in a cozy mystery. Carefully weaving them into the story's main plot creates a richer and more interesting narrative. Susan, tell us about your story's subplots.
Subplots are fun extra bits of a book. I have many subplots in The Fog Ladies, and I'll talk about my favorites. I mentioned in an earlier podcast that the original draft of The Fog Ladies did not have enough murder suspects. I needed to add some in, and I created Chantrell and Big Owen, the ne'er-do-well teen parents of Baby Owen. Big Owen is big and mean. He holds an ugly grudge against the dead woman, Muriel Bridge. I'll read a truncated version of that scene. Big Owen wore black jeans and a black sweatshirt. The baby was all in white, but his shirt was smeared with brown, which Mrs. Noonan thought looked suspiciously like the tobacco juice collecting at the corners of Big Owen's mouth. She watched, stunned, as the baby reached up to his father's face and wiped his little hand around Big Owen's mouth. He brought his wet hand away and shoved it into his own mouth. Almost. Muriel Bridge caught his hand and yanked. Too hard, unfortunately, and the baby toppled out of Big Owen's arms and into Muriel's. Baby Owen's filthy hand made a filthy print on Muriel's beige silk blouse. Muriel threw Baby Owen back into Big Owen's arms, shouting, "You are scum, and your child is scummy. You are unfit to be." Big Owen stood there with the baby stuck to his chest, almost invisible in his massive arms. Big Owen's face turned pink, then red with rage, his neck vessels bulging. Writing about this family also allowed me to create a subplot about parenting styles. Here's a short scene about Chantrell. They arrived back at Mrs. Gordon's apartment just before lunch. Chantrell had set a bowl of cereal in front of Baby Owen and was pouring Pepsi into his bottle. "Oh, no, dear," said Mrs. Noonan, "not Pepsi. Babies don't drink Pepsi." "He likes Pepsi," Chantrell continued pouring. "No wonder he has so much gas," said Mrs. Gordon. The second subplot I'd like to describe is a mistake my main character makes at the hospital. Sarah is a young medical intern, and she makes a misdiagnosis that leads to a man's death. She's despondent, not sleeping, not thinking clearly, questioning her entire career as a doctor, and worried she might hurt someone else. Her mistake gets tied up with another subplot when 80-year-old Enid Carmichael binges on promotional grande lattes from Starbucks and develops chest pain and palpitations. Sarah thinks she has heartburn and gives her antacid, and the next day Mrs. Carmichael is in the ICU with an apparent heart attack, a devastating blow to Sarah. Her mistake eventually allows her to solve the murders, with a satisfying rounding out of all these intertwining subplots. As we discussed here, in a cozy, A subplot can add humor, it can add to character development, it can throw a new obstacle at the protagonist, or it can serve up red herrings to confuse the reader. Thank you for listening. Next time we'll talk about an interesting character, almost always found in a cozy, the policeman, policewoman, or otherwise qualified professional who helps the amateur sleuth. Join us next time and learn about the role of law enforcement in a cozy. Please subscribe so you won't miss an episode of the Cozy Mystery Quartet.